Okay, before beginning the video, I want to give out a disclaimer for those wanting an in-depth analysis. This video is not an in-depth analysis of every single futurist individual, futurist thought, futurist art, etc. But it's merely a small overview of Italian futurism from the standpoint of a person who sympathizes with the concept of futurism, but is mainly looking at it from a historical lens. I will be flashing certain names, concepts to you, like these pages here, in hopes of piquing your interest in this subject, so you can do your own research at your own leisure. So that is reason number one. Reason number two is that I want to also kind of start a mini-series on futurism, since I do call myself American futurist, and I thought it would be appropriate to make these kind of videos. The series is called Exploring Futurism, and it's just that, exploring futurism. And at the end, I will give my opinion on the subject. The final reason number three, is that one of my fellow futurists kindly asked for my stances on futurism, especially this one. So with that being said, let's start the video. Futurism was an artistic social movement that originated in Italy in 1909. It emphasizes speed, technology, youth, and violence, the car, the airplane, and the industrial city, all that represented the technological triumph of humanity over nature. And they were passionate nationalists. They repudiated the cult of the past and all imitation, praised originality, dismissed art critics as useless, rebelled against harmony and good taste, swept away all the themes and subjects of all previous art, and glorified in science. Many futurists enlisted during World War I and had influenced them greatly, like music, for example. The outbreak of the war brought it to an end. The art historian Giovanni Lista has classified futurism by decade. For the 1910s, plastic dynamism. For the 1920s, mechanical art. And for the 1930s, aeroaesthetics. The return to order movement came as a reaction to extreme avant-garde art before 1918, Futurism and Cubism, and, of course, the World War I. They seek the revival of classicism and realistic painting. I merely show them here to show that they did have that this group, the Futurists, had an impact, whatever positive or negative. So let's get into little bits of the culture aspect of futurism, which is what Italian futurism is mainly about. So here is Giannina Sensi. She was the main interpreter of futurist dances such as the aerodanza or aerodance. And here's some images of Sensi. especially with some of the aero dance techniques. Now, Italian Futurism in cinema. These are some of the movies that they have made. Only this one appears to have survived. But there was one particular film that that one famed movie critic, Pauline Kael, said that she liked. She said this was her most favorite film of all time, and that it developed a technique that suggests the movement known in painting as futurism. So it had futurist elements. This is the movie. Now, literature. So, poetry or word autonomy, in which all ideas of meter were rejected, and the word became the main unit of concern. Science fiction novels played an important role in futurist literature. Futurist music. In particular, Luigi Russolo, which is this individual here. He wrote a manifesto, The Art of Noises, which goes into detail about this. And there's also other manifestos, like the Manifesto of Futurist Musicians, the Technical Manifesto of Futurist Music, the Destruction of Quadrature. Luigi formed this particular instrument. Another example of a futurist musician is George Antheil of the United States. And then we have futurist architecture, particularly by one particular architect of importance, Antonio Sant'Elia, which is this man here. And to give an example, to give some examples of futurist architecture, these come to mind. There's also this one location in Florence called the Santa Maria Novella Station. as you can see here. Marinetti formed the Futurist political party in early 1918, before being absorbed by Mussolini's Fasci Italiani di Combattimento in 1919, making him one of the first members of the National Fascist Party. He left them due to fascism's later exaltation of existing institutions. Regardless, he supported them until his death in 1944. Futurism had a place in Mussolini's Italy, but the results of World War II had many futurist artists struggling with their careers because of their association with a defeated and discredited regime. Towards the end of the 1930s, right-wing fascists introduced the German concept of degenerate art and condemned Futurism. Marinetti made many compromises to integrate himself with the regime, like promoting religious arts, becoming an academic, even though he despised them. He got married, even though he despised marriage, and even reconciled himself to the Catholic Church, declaring that Jesus Christ to be a futurist himself. Leftists were associated with Futurism until 1924, and finally 1936 and 1939, with the annexation of Abyssinia and the Italo-German Pact of Steel. This association was mainly due to Georges Sorel's concept of regenerative effect of political violence. Now we have going into the 1920s, 30s, aero painting or aero pittura, a major expression of second, possibly third generation Futurism beginning in 1926. The technology and excitement of flight inspired this, and aero painting was diverse in its presentation, like realism, abstraction, dynamicism, quiet Umbrian landscapes, Mussolini's paintings like this one right here, religious paintings, planes, and decorative art. Futurism had left for such a small movement, it had a huge impact on the world. It partially influenced fascism taking some of their concepts like the youth and violence, and their nationalist tendencies. And looking to the modern world in a positive light in some way. There's not just the politics side of things like fascism, but there's also art and culture, like, for example, Art Deco, Vorticism, Constructivism, Surrealism, Dada movement, Neo-Futurism, and the Grosvenor school linocut artists. There's also Solomon R. Guggenheim Museum of USA. This comes to mind. Esoteric collection of modern Italian art. The cyberpunk genre, as we know it today. and even the Tetsudo films by famed Shinya Tsukamoto. So, what is my opinion on Italian Futurism in general? I like them mainly for their historical significance of the past 111 years since, the 1909 manifesto. The amount of impact that they have made the past 111 years is pretty big in my view. They had a lot of influence, and they still have influence today in various individuals, like archaeofuturism, futurist theorist Goldemain Fine, national futurist theorist Konstantin von Hofmeister, American futurism like myself, and so on and so forth. I also like them mainly for their architecture. Out of all of the culture stuff that they have done in the past, this is particularly my favorite aspect, is the architecture. And this is one of my favorite paintings that kind of illustrate this pretty well. It's called Cityscape by Tulio Crowley, 1939. So, if you want to learn more about Futurism, go research it for yourself. You'll find some interesting things there for sure. Here is one place to start. I would suggest going here for starters. Go look at their template. They got a whole list of stuff for you to start off with. And you can go from there. In the future, I will be making another exploring futurism video based on this guy here, Konstantin von Hofmeister, with his idea of national futurism. And then after that, I'll be making a political test video, particularly this test. So things will be a little interesting in the future. I will say have a great day, and keep looking forward.